All right, we have the housing market update, and what a quiet week it has been. Thankfully, finally a week where it's quiet, it's not too crazy, and really most of the movement in the market has been just a little tit for tat between President Trump and Chairman Powell. So let's take a look at the big three. Prices continue to go up, and inventory is up as well, the highest that we have had in Oahu since COVID. And then rates went down, not a lot, but down a little bit. Giving us a little bit of a reprieve from them spiking last week. All right, so the headline news, Trump versus Powell. It's like Rocky versus Clubber Lang or Apollo Creed. It's kind of a bloodbath right now. We're all getting blood splattered all over us. Homebuilder sentiment is in the dumps. So you had the Homebuilder sentiment report come out, and then mortgage rates are down a bit. We'll get into that as well. All right, Trump versus Powell. All right. We got a dilemma right now, and this is Fed Chair Powell speaking on Wednesday. They're in a dilemma between controlling inflation and supporting economic growth. Now, the president, he wants Fed Chair Powell to lower the Fed funds rate. He's adamant. He wants interest rates to come down. Tariffs be damned. He wants interest rates down. And remember, he's really pushing for this. He wants the dollar to get weaker. That's happened. He wants fuel prices to come down. That has happened. Those are two good things for inflation to come down. He also wants interest rates to come down. All right, he doesn't control the Fed funds rate, but he does want the 10-year Treasury to come down. That happened, and then the tariff stuff happened after Liberation Day. You saw interest rates go up, but he wants the Fed to lower the Fed funds rate immediately. And Fed Chair Powell, a couple months ago, he's like, you know what? I'm more concerned with really getting unemployment down, keeping unemployment down. And inflation was already en route to the 2% that they wanted, but now he's back to saying, hey, you know what? Inflation is where I'm focused. It's more important than jobs right now. And he's concerned is that tariffs are likely to cause inflation to go up in the near term and slow GDP. And if inflation goes up, the Fed may be inclined to increase the Fed funds rate to help stop economic growth and then curb the inflation. So President Trump doesn't want that. President Trump, he's been saying, I want to fire Powell. He doesn't like him. He actually appointed Chairman Powell back in his first term as president. And it's kind of funny, 2018, he was pushing Chairman Powell to lower the Fed funds rate then. Fed Chair Powell raised the Fed funds rate in 2018. And that had a really negative impact on the economy. And he was just hammering away at Powell. The Fed is independent of the president, so they are not influenced directly, indirectly maybe, definitely. But Fed Chair Powell was not basically listening to him, so they have had bad blood now for 2 terms. Chairman Powell's comments on Wednesday helped cause interest rates to come down from their highs the previous week. You know, I will leave this at that. Trump is adamant. He's animated. Powell is just kind of doing his thing. He's looking at 2 things. He's looking at inflation. He's looking at the job market. Unemployment is up a little bit, but not too bad at 4.2%. Inflation's where it needs to be, going in the right direction. And I think the PCE report that comes out next Friday will continue to see inflation go down. But the impact of those tariffs, we may not see those for another month or 2 months. And that's where his concern is, what's going to happen when the impact of the tariffs cause prices to go up. That's something to take a look at as we go forward. But that's really the big news of the week. In the other news of the week, we got the Homebuilder sentiment. It improves, but still sucks. All right, we went from 39 to 40. Buyer traffic is up from 24 to 25. But again, anything below 50 is bad. That's negative. Builders are feeling negative. Here's the kicker. Because of this, their fear of the tariff impacts on home building supplies, future sales expectations actually went down a lot from 47 to 43. While interest rates coming down recently caused their current sales expectations to go up, overall, the future does not look bright for home builders, and we're still in a negative overall feeling at a score of 40. Let's take a look at VA rates and how they went. Rates are down this week as the fireworks from Liberation Day and the subsequent tariff hikes gave way to a quieter news cycle this past week. Hey, next week we're going to see some more news. PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditure Report, that is going to come out, and then we also we'll have GDP coming out in the next 2 weeks. And then not next week, but the week after, we will have jobs week, and jobs week will certainly move the markets one way or another. If unemployment goes up, we expect to see interest rates come down. So a lot of movement over the course of the next 2 weeks. Remember, this Friday, the bond market's closed. So really, Thursday was the last day for bond and rate movement for the week. What does this mean? Well, hey, mortgage apps were down. They were up the previous week or 2 weeks ago. Last week, they were down, and that's largely because we saw this huge spike in interest rates. Refinance apps were down as well. Again, same reason. And right now we're in a buyer's market, especially on the west side of Oahu. Now is the best time to buy. If you wait for rates to come down, it's going to be more expensive. I've already shown that a couple times. Sellers, hey, no change there. April is the best time. But you know what? With the tariff tantrums, maybe May is going to be. Maybe our PCS season, our home selling, the biggest part of our home selling season is going to start a week later or a month later this year. That's about all I have for you this week, keeping it kind of short. Have a great week. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and tune in next week because there's a lot of news going to break out with that big inflation report. All right, have a great Easter weekend, and hopefully you have a little bit of time off to relax, recharge, and give thanks. All right, aloha.